Hi, Andrea here with some interracial dating tips and tricks to support you in your interracial dating journey. So today we're going to talk about talking about race and should you talk about race and how to talk about race. I'm hearing that song, Let's Talk About Race, Baby. That's not a song, but I'm revamping the Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to talk about race. I think, yes, you should discuss race if you're in an interracial relationship. I don't think you need to always be talking about race, and I don't think it has to always be like serious and heavy, but in my experience as a black woman in a relationship with a white man, race comes up, and I find it's always a better thing if you and your partner have discussed race privately in your own home or apartment. You don't want the first time the topic of race comes up to be when you're walking down the street and like a heckler shouts something racially insensitive at you, or like at a dinner party with your friends, or like a comment from family, or like when you're watching the news and something racial happens. I mean, if that's the first time it comes up, that's fine. And maybe you're in an interracial relationship and nobody will ever say anything to you guys about race. I do believe, though, that interracial relationships are the key to racial healing in America, and I would say the world. So I think it's a missed opportunity to not talk about race or never talk about race. But I also don't think it has to be like every conversation is about race. So first of all, I would say it doesn't have to be heavy. Like, it can be light and fun. It can be like jokes or teasing or something like that, depending on like the energy of the way that you and the person you're with like talk to each other and connect with one another. So I'm a stand-up comic, so I really like jokes and comedy, and my man is funny, so we talk about race a lot in like a very light kind of way. Like, he's a white guy, so I tease him whenever he wears flip-flops, like, oh, white people love to wear flip-flops, you know that, and things like that, or like fun, light joking. Now, some people may take offense to that, so like, you're getting to know this person, or you're in a relationship with this person, so you know what they're like, so maybe joking won't ever occur. But I just want to encourage that race doesn't always have to be like a serious, heavy topic. It can be light and playful. Like, my man has also come to church with me many times, and we visit my family in Virginia, and like, we joke a lot about how like a black church is like a Broadway show, and the preacher is like sweating, and there's music, and there's dancing, and like revelry and clapping. And so I don't know, we talk about what some of the differences are between like his family and my family in this like light, fun way. And we're also basically talking about race, but in a subtle way. So I think like in terms of race and racial discussions, like, see when it naturally comes through. So certainly if you're just meeting somebody and asking them on a date, I'm not suggesting that while you ask them for coffee, you also bring up like shootings or something like that. I'm not at all suggesting that. It doesn't have to come in on the first date or even the third, or, I think race will like naturally come in. But if you're in a relationship with someone of a different race and it hasn't come in yet, then you could also ask yourself like, gee, I wonder why we've never talked about it. Maybe it's early in the dating phase for you, or early in the relationship, so it naturally just hasn't come in. Or maybe you're like afraid to talk about it. And if you're afraid to talk about it, that's very common. Like, a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. But I do think it's an opportunity for like both of you to like learn where the other person is at, and like what their thoughts are and experiences are. I know one of the things that my man and I talked about initially was just like how much experience we had with like black or white people growing up. And so like my man shared with me, like there was only like 2 black kids in his high school, whereas for me, I grew up in a military town. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Norfolk is like the biggest naval base in the country, and so there's a lot of different racial groups. And so my man, I showed him a picture of like my preschool class, and he was like, oh my god, this is like incredible. There was like 4 black kids and 4 white kids and 4 Asian kids, and like one of the teachers was black and the other teacher was white. It was very diverse, and that's basically how things continue to be for me from like elementary school to junior high to high school. So I grew up, I kind of, and stupidly so, assuming the entire country was racially diverse, and it wasn't. So that was kind of the way, one of the ways it came in the beginning, like me talking about like, oh, this is what it was like for me growing up with like my experience with different racial groups. And then my man got to share, oh, well, for me it was different. And so we talked about it in that respect. And I do think it's really helpful to kind of hold an open space for the other person to share what things were like for them without like judging it or being like, your parents were terrible because they should have put you in a school with more black kids or something. Like, instead just saying like, oh, like what was your experience like, and what did you think, or how'd you feel about that? And just really like with the ear towards learning what the other person's experience was, and what it was like for them. And if the first time you're talking about race is because like something happened in the news or the media, something like violent or terrible or upsetting for your partner or for you, that can also be a great time to connect about race. And my man and I have had tons of those experiences where I've said like, okay, this just happened in the news, or I just found out about this experience and I'm really upset about it. And if something happens and you're very upset about it, I think it can be helpful to bring your partner into that experience, and even just to say to them, I'm really upset. Can you just listen to me while I share how I'm feeling and what's going on? I don't need you to necessarily say anything. I just don't want to feel alone and what's going on for me. And I'm the kind of person, I am a comedian, but I do cry a lot. I'm a crier. Like a kind of person, I cry at like movies and commercials and music. And so my man's kind of used to me being like, I feel some emotion coming up. Can you sit with me while I cry? And not necessarily about race, but more like, I think most recently I was watching the end of Dirty Dancing, which is one of my favorite movies. And Jerry Orbach and Jennifer Grey, they like hug at the end. And that scene always gets me. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's not always racial crying. But just to say like, okay, I just saw this video, or I read this article. Could you sit with me while I like share with you how I'm feeling? And I think that it's always helpful when you're the partner who's like receiving what the other person's experience is, to just be with that person and let them know that you appreciate that they brought this to you and that you care about them, and that you're sorry that they're having that experience. Like, you don't have to, there's no pressure to come up with the perfect statement or comment. Like, you don't have to give the I have a dream speech or something. Just like letting them know that you care about them and you love them if that's where you are in the relationship, and that you support them. Like, that's like the critical, most important thing, that the person knows that they're not alone. And if you're early in the relationship, you may not be like the go-to person for your partner to bring like racial concerns to. Like, maybe you guys aren't living together yet, or you've only been together for a few months, I'm not sure. Or like, maybe your partner of a different race wants to talk to somebody else of the same race about what's going on for them. That's very normal. I do that as well, even though my man and I have been together for 9 years. Like, I will talk to other black women or black people, or like my parents or something, about what is going on or how I'm feeling. But I also feel very comfortable to bring those things to my man too. And if you're not there yet in your relationship, that's okay. Like, again, my man and I have been together for over 9 years. We've known each other for 10. So everybody's at different places. And if you're in an interracial relationship and your partner isn't your go-to person for race talks, that's also okay. But in my experience, race will come up if you leave the house. I mean, I live in Brooklyn. We live in New York. So, you know, New York is definitely known to be a place where people will shout things out while you're walking down the street or from the bus or in cars or like whatever. We've definitely had comments from like homeless people, and, you know, you get a lot of comments. And so it can be like, ee, that's uncomfortable. Like, we're on our way to dinner and somebody just called me Aunt Jemima, which was like kind of intense, but whatever. It was, but then we were able to talk about it because, like, that was not the first time we talked about race. And I even said to my man, like, the Aunt Jemima incident, we were like, was that an insult to, like, me? Or is he saying I look like Aunt Jemima? What's going on? And the homeless person was a black man. So I was like, I don't feel like he has a problem with me. I don't know if he has a problem with you. I'm not sure. I think he just didn't know what to say. So Aunt Jemima was the thing that came out. I don't know. But, like, it helped that we kind of had many conversations about race in the past. I think this happened like 7 years into the relationship. So, but I think just like build up the muscle, and it can start off small with you just saying, let's see, there's different examples. Like, I brought up the school example, and maybe your partner will ask you point blank, like, have you ever dated a, you know, ex person before? Like, I'm sure I asked my man, like, have you ever dated a black girl before, or have you ever been in a relationship with a black girl before? And he may have asked me the same thing. And I mean, we had been friends for a year before we started seeing each other, so we were definitely more comfortable with one another. I don't think I would have like come out of my mouth and said that if it was like literally like the third date with a white guy I'd never met before ever. But I think, like I said, race will kind of naturally come up, and I encourage you to have those discussions. It's always great to ask questions, and to ask what the person's experience is without like the pressure of there being a right answer, but just like the desire to learn about this person. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Talk about race. I think it's fun. I think it can be fun. It's not always just fun, but like, I'll tell you that like my man and I, we talk about race pretty openly, and most of the time it's fun and light. And then occasionally it's like a little bit more heavy and serious. And then it also comes in a lot like cultural differences, like when he's visiting my friends or family, or I'm taking him down, like I said, to see my family in Virginia, or we're going to see his family in New Jersey. It's just like, oh, is this like a white thing, or is this like a black thing? Like, what's going on? And I think it's pretty clear that we know that we respect one another, we care about one another. Oh, this other last thing I'll say, I think don't try to have like compassion if somebody like misspeaks or says something that's like, whoa, I'm sure you didn't mean it to come out that way. I think like the person's dating you, they are endeavoring to have a relationship with you, so I'm sure their goal is to like not upset you. And so I think when people are talking about race for the first time with one another, or they're getting to know each other, I think people are really like wanting to make sure not to offend. And so if somebody does accidentally say something to offend, I think it's good to be like, hey, that came off kind of strange. Did you mean that? They can say, no, I didn't mean it, I'm sorry, and what I meant to say was this or that. And so I think a lot of like holding a lot of compassion for the other person, for both parties, is a good way to go. So any questions, drop them in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel for more interracial dating tips and tricks, and good luck out there.